we are in this series where we are talking about America in prophecy. And in the last several weeks, I have made a number of points that I hope everybody is still remembering. Point number one of the most important points is that we are all citizens of heaven before we are citizens of any other country, nation on this earth. And the second point that I keep making in all of these sermons has to do with our unconditional support to any government or any religious institution. And I am saying we should not give our unconditional support to anybody, because there are many times and circumstances where an institution or a government or some kind of a force will ask you or tell the citizens to compromise on their beliefs and to compromise with their faith. And this we have seen so many times in the human history, where one power or the other was telling people how to live their life. And as a Seventh-day Adventist, as an American, I want to live my life free. I don't want to have to be influenced by any power telling me how I should live my life. So today, the title of this sermon is "Where Did All the Jobs Go?" But that's not really the intent of the sermon. Is not to study where did the jobs go and why and all of that stuff. It's not about the jobs. It's about your and my freedom. And I believe that the jobs leaving the United States of America is only a symptom of a greater problem that we have in this country. How many of you have heard President Obama's speech not too long ago, the State of the Union? State of the Union was a wonderful speech, and one of the things that he kept talking about in there was about this idea of American exceptionalism. And basically the idea is that America is the number one country in everything. And we always have been, and we always will be. And the references were made in that speech to the American worker and how we need to go back to being the best and making the most and being number one. And, you know, these speeches, they always have this whole number one thing in there, and it's number one, we are the best. And as he was making that speech, I was just wondering, what did people in China think about that speech? What did people in Europe think about that speech? What did people in Germany or England or Italy think about that speech, where somebody, a president of a country, is openly saying, my country and my people, we are the best. And everybody else is over there, and we need to be number one because we are special. And I do believe that America was created for a special reason. I believe that the United States of America was created by God's providence for a special reason. And that special reason was so that the oppressed people, not just from Europe, but from all over the world, could come to this country and be free. That was the special reason why God created this country. Europeans, the first settlers who came to this country, they came because they were running away from the religious oppression in Europe. And the religious oppression was basically committed by the Catholic Church. I'm not anti-Catholic. I'm very friendly with Catholics, and I have many good friends who are Catholics, but you can't get around some of these historical facts. There was a major persecution against anybody who believed differently. Reformers were killed because of their beliefs. So when America was discovered, a number of people who did not want to be under the thumb of the official Catholic Church, they just got on a boat and they left everything. They left their homes, they left their families, they left their country, they left the city where they were born, and they came to this new land where they could be totally free, where they could go over here and set up a church the way they wanted to and worship in that church the way they wanted to, and nobody was going to come back and tell them otherwise. So that's why I believe America was created. And the American idea, I believe, is something that has been a threat to the world powers, religious powers, government powers. The American idea, the idea that the average human being can be a master of his or her own destiny, was a threat to many powers around this world, whether it is the church powers or government powers or anybody else. Just think about it this way. The idea that you change presidents every 4 years. If you are a king of Saudi Arabia, do you like that idea? If you're a President Mubarak of Egypt who has been in power for 30 years, do you like this American idea that people get to choose their president every 4 years? That people get to choose their senators and congressmen every couple of years? You don't like that idea. So American idea is a threat to many powers around the world. So when America was beginning to be powerful and strong, especially after World War II, I personally believe that there was a unified effort to destroy America and to ruin it. The pictures that I'm going to show you right now are the pictures of some of the very beautiful cities around the world. And as you look at these pictures, I just want you to notice one thing. These are not American cities. These cities are Asian cities. They are Saudi Arabian cities. They are cities in Kuwait. There are cities in Australia. There are cities in Canada. There are cities all over the place. So when President Obama was talking about American exceptionalism and how great we are and how great we need to be and how we need to be the number one and all of that stuff, I was just wondering to myself, do we really understand in the United States of America what's going on out there in this world? I went to Croatia about 3 years ago. When I went to Croatia, when I came back, a person sent me an email. And this is what they said in their email. They said, Pastor Gordon, glad you're back in America. And now that you were over there in Croatia, I am sure that you can greatly appreciate the fact that you're so privileged to live in America. That was the email that I got. And I asked this person next time when I saw them, I said, look, let me ask you something. When was the last time that you traveled outside of the United States? When was the last time that you went to Europe, or that you went to Australia, or that you went to one of those countries that you think are having it so bad? The little country of Croatia that I come from, 30 years ago, it was totally backward. Half the country didn't have electricity, didn't have highways, didn't have hotels. We didn't know the meaning of the word air conditioning. Now when I go back there, the country is totally transformed. It's totally changed. It's a modern European country. And this is the place that used to be ruled by communists. So if I were to stand here now and talk to you about other countries like Germany, or England, or France, or Spain, or Italy, or New Zealand, or Australia, I mean, these countries are advanced. They have good economies. They have good highways. They have good hotels. They have good restaurants. I mean, you can see on these pictures over here, these are not American cities. These are Asian cities. Some of these cities are in the middle of China. I don't even know the name of these cities. And I think that we sometimes in this country deceive ourselves into this idea of how great and fantastic we are and everybody else is bad, and we just need to be grateful that we are here. And I want to tell you something. Times have changed. This used to be the greatest country on the planet. If it wasn't for the United States of America, most of the world today would be ruled by Nazis. So this used to be one of the greatest countries in the world. And today, I'm going to show today that we are losing that place in the world. I wanted to show you just the difference between the Chinese train and the American Amtrak. I don't know if we have that picture. I just wanted to show you that. Just for a second, just for the sake of making a point. This is a good old, takes 24 hours to go from Denver to Chicago. And this is a train station in China where you have these trains that will travel at 300 miles an hour. And then somebody tells me, you need to be grateful that you're living here because everybody else lives in poverty and they have it so terrible. I'm telling you this, we as a country are blind to what's going on around us in this world. We also, as the citizens of this country, should be held at fault for that. You know why? Let me tell you why. Because we are so blinded by Hollywood. People are spending untold hours of watching American Idol and Dancing with the Stars. And when Jay Leno does the interview on the street and he shows the picture of the vice president of the country and nobody knows who that guy is, and then he shows a picture of some guy on a Dancing with the Stars and everybody knows the name of that person, then you know that something is wrong with that country. Something is deeply, disturbingly wrong. We just don't know what's going on in the world around us. So anybody can come into our life and tell us, oh, we are the greatest. Oh, we are the best. And you wouldn't know any better because you're watching Dancing with the Stars. We never travel outside of the country. I have a friend of mine, and we talk every once in a while, and I tell him, I said I was in Europe, you know, and I was in Australia and whatever, and he says to me, I never want to go out there. I said, why not? Well, because this is the best country, and I don't want to go see anything else, you know. And I'm thinking, you're closed-minded, you know. You need to go out there and see what's going on. So how is it that we have gone, and why is it that we have gone from being one of the greatest countries in the world to a country that is actually right now struggling economically and financially and in every other area of our life? 108 million Americans right now are either without a job, have a part-time job, or are considered unemployable. 108 million, and we have 300 million people. So then when somebody says, oh, the unemployment is only 9%, well, excuse me, 100 million out of 300 million is more like 30%. So this is what's going on right under our nose. America is changing. We are lagging behind Asia. We are lagging behind South America. Why? I have a theory, and I'm going to share that theory with you, because I believe that there was a deliberate attempt from the inception, from the birth of this country, to change America and to ruin it. Because the American idea just does not agree with those who want to create a new world order, with those who want to create one unified government that controls the whole world. What is the American idea? And you see it right here on this screen. America offers freedom, freedom of speech. When people came to this country, we have freedom of speech. And we take that for granted. We think that's not a big deal. Freedom of speech. What's so strange about it? Ask those of us who used to live in a communist country, what does the freedom of speech mean? Freedom of speech means that in this country, you and I can openly talk about our government, or we're able to openly talk about our government at one time. Nobody would say nothing to us about it. Where I come from, and my country was Yugoslavia. I was born in Yugoslavia. It was called Yugoslavia then. My country was mild communism. It wasn't very rough communism like East Germany or Soviet Union or some of those other countries. It was mild communism. My father, from the day I was a young boy, my father and my mother taught us one lesson, me and my brother. And the lesson was this: never, ever talk about the president or anybody in the government in the public. Never, ever. Why? Because if somebody hears a little 8-year-old boy make a derogatory remark about the president of the country, that little boy's parents are going to be visited by the secret police within the next 24 hours if anybody reports that. And when they come to your house, the chances are that your life is going to be ruined for the rest of your life. Because they are going to go into the files, and next to your name, they are going to say, agitator, traitor, not patriotic. So, freedom of speech we have here in America. What a wonderful concept. Freedom of speech means that you can express your faith. The official church for centuries, 15 centuries, did not allow freedom of speech. You could not read your own Bible. You had to go to church, you had to listen to what the priest had to say, and that was it. You couldn't discuss it, you couldn't talk about it, you couldn't throw your idea out there, you could not discuss theological ideas with anybody because there was no freedom of speech. It was the church's way, and that was the only way. There is no freedom of speech in many of these countries today where you have these dictators. So these powers that want to create a one unified world government, they do not like the American idea where the average person can have a freedom of speech. So even today, right now, in our country, we are slowly beginning to lose our freedom of speech. Because if you talk openly and loudly about your idea, about the government, about the war in Iraq or Afghanistan, the chances are that somebody is listening to you. Because the government, our government, has given itself the authority to listen in on the Americans. Not just on Croatian Americans, but on Americans. Those of you who were born here and raised here, they've given themselves the right to hear what you have to say. So freedom of speech is just going to disappear one of these days. Total privacy. America was the country where you could come from Europe and you could have your house, and your house was your castle. And you could go into your house and you could live in there the way you want to live in your house. Nobody could tell you what to do with your property or what to do on your property or in your house. Me and my brother, we bought a little house in Florida to fix it up, and he lives in it now. And when we bought it, we got so excited, we wanted to fix it up so fast. I went to Home Depot and we picked up a window that needed to be replaced because the window in that house was a total mess. And we came home, and in the next 2 hours, we put the new window in there, and we went out there and we looked at this house and we said, wow, this house is going to look great because we're going to do the window, we're going to do the roof, we're going to paint it, we're going to do the rest of the windows. 3 days later, we get a ticket for $600 because we did not ask for permission from the city government to change out our own window on our own house. $600. And you know what? I paid it. I had to pay it. I'm so mad. I had to pay it. Is it any wonder that in Florida everybody is moving out? I have a friend of mine in Florida who was trying to build a garage on his own property. His own property. He paid for it. Cash money. No loans, no nothing. He has money. He came in and he bought the house. And he has 2 acres on it. And he wants to build a garage. He goes in and he asks for a permit. 2 years later, they're not giving him a permit. You know what he did? He called the real estate, sold everything, went to live in Arkansas. Because over there, they don't have these crazy, idiotic rules. You know, so this is what's going on in our country right now. In our country right now, if you own a cell phone or a laptop, or if you have a Comcast cable service, the government has the ability to hear and to see what goes on inside of your 4 walls. Google, if you're using Google, Google will keep records of your searches for up to 18 months. When you go home, those of you who use Google email, you read the fine print and you will find out something else. Google has the right not only to keep your emails, but to read your emails. And the government has the right to go to Google and to say, I want to see John's emails. And Google has to give it to them. So, America, American idea, religious freedom, total privacy, that is a threat to anybody out there who wants to be a dictator. That is a threat to one world government. And that's why we are losing these rights that we used to have here for years. Freedom of religion is another one. And you can say to me, oh, Gordon, we are never going to lose our freedom of religion. Are you sure? Are you sure? When government comes into your church and gives you $100,000 so that you can take care of the poor and needy people in the community, that same government also puts stipulations on how you are going to run your church. And there is a movement in this country right now to strip the churches of tax-exempt status and to control the way we worship. You may say to me, Gordon, why do you support Muslim people to have mosques and to have their places of worship in this country? You know why I support it? Because if you take it away from one group, eventually you're going down the slippery hill and you can start taking away that right from every other group that the majority does not agree with. We used to have a total freedom of religion in this country. That's how this country was built. And this idea does not go along with one world order. If you go to Europe right now, even to these countries that are considered to be liberal and free, you will find out that just about most of those countries have the official state religion somewhere written in their constitution. In Norway, they have a religious, I forget what is the name, Anglican or whatever, but they're the official religion of the state. If, as a Seventh-day Adventist, I want to do a special meeting, I have to get the permission from that authority, because I'm not the official religion in that country. So this idea that anybody can worship any way they want to does not go along with the idea of one world order. And that's why this freedom is also going to be taken. Small government is another one. When this country became a country, the idea was that the government was going to stay out of the people's business. And if you were in a city, you had to have a sheriff, right? And he was going to take care of the basic order in the place, but the government was going to stay out of your business. Today, the United States government is the largest employer in the country. Everybody wants to work for the government. Why? Because it's good benefits. You can never lose your job. You can be a total loser, not show for work. You know, I mean, I went to New York one time, and this is the true story. There is a crew that is fixing up the street. And they dug a hole in the street, and they are doing something over there. And next to them, there is a police car, and the two policemen are over there. I'm not lying, drinking coffee, eating donuts. And they're just standing there. And, you know, I didn't pay any attention to that idea, just went about my own business. On the other street, the same scene. There is a crew working on something on the light, and there is a police car, and two guys are sitting in there doing nothing. And I saw this over and over again, and I finally asked somebody, why is there police always together with these crews? And they say it's a state law. It's a state law that if they are fixing something up, the police has to be there and just observe and make sure that nothing goes wrong. Make sure that nobody runs into a ditch or a hole or whatever. I said, I've never seen that in Colorado or Chicago or anywhere else. But they have that law. Why? Because everybody wants to be on a government payroll. It's good to have a government job. You don't have to really do anything. Just sit there, you know, wave the flag, and you're going to get your money. So the American government now is the largest employer in the country. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who works for the government is lazy. That would not be true. But the fact is that we have gone from what it used to be, the small government, to what is now absolutely out of control federal government. And the state government and the city government and the county governments are not any better. Did I read the story right about this one little city that has like 3,000 people, and the city mayor is getting $700,000 a year salary? And his treasurer is getting something like $600,000. Between the three people, they are raking in millions of dollars. You know, this is what's going on. Small government became the large government. Opportunity for the poor. That's what this country was also known for. You could come here as a poor person, and you would have the greatest opportunity than in any other country. In most other countries, back then, 30 years ago when I came here, in most other countries, if your dad was a shoemaker, you had to be a shoemaker. If your dad was a farmer, you had to be a farmer. And here, you could come to America, and if your dad was a farmer, you could be a doctor. If your dad was a shoemaker, you could be a lawyer. If your dad was a baker, you could be a politician. Better be a baker than a politician. But you could. The opportunity was there. You could be anything you wanted to. And that opportunity is going away. They have tested, analyzed a number of countries to see if America still has the greatest opportunity than any other country for a poor person to become rich. We are somewhere like in the 9th place now. Brazil is in the top 3. If you're a poor person living on a street, you have more opportunity in Brazil today than you have in the United States of America. I was watching a documentary on TV the other day, and they were showing this Indian from India, brother and sister. They were born and raised in this country. Their parents were first generation immigrants. But the kids, they were born and raised in this country. They went to good schools, got engineering degrees, and when they grew up, they don't even speak Indian language. You know what they did? They moved back to India to open engineering firms over there. And they did an interview with them, and they asked them, why are you're American kids. I mean, you're born in America, you're an American citizen. Why are you going back to live back in India? You know what they said? Better opportunity. Better opportunity. Unheard of 30, 40 years ago that somebody would want to leave America and go to India. And now people are doing it, not just going to India, but going to China, going back to Europe, going back to their home countries. Why? Because there is more opportunity there than there is here. Jobs meant independence from government and also from the organized religion. If you come to America and if you can get a job and if you can provide for your family and if you can take care of yourself, that means that you're independent. You don't have to take a handout from the government. You don't have to take a handout from your church. And therefore, you don't have to take direction from either one, your church or your government. So, hear me out on this. You lose your job, you lose your ability to provide for yourself and your family. Who all of a sudden is in control of your life? That one person that is giving you the handout that you need to survive. So, to destroy America, to ruin America, to ruin the American idea, destroy the working class people. Put them on government subsidy and help. Genesis 41, I want to read this story because this story illustrates to a large degree how governments sometimes work. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. You remember that story? That's a famous story, isn't it? Then Pharaoh couldn't figure out what the dream was, so he asked for wise people to come to him and talk to him about this dream. And Joseph was the one that was going to answer this dream. So I'm skipping a few verses. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. There was no food, however, in the whole region because the famine was so severe. What was going on in Egypt, God foretold to Pharaoh in a dream that there was going to be 7 wonderful, rich years. And they were going to be followed by 7 years of famine and poverty. And that's exactly what was happening in that particular country. And Joseph was rising to become a man in charge of this situation. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, what do I do? How do we deal with this poverty that is going to come up on our land? And this is what happens next. There was no food, however, in the whole region because the famine was so severe. Both Egypt and Canaan wasted away because of the famine. And Joseph, this is what he did. He collected all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan in payment for the grain they were buying. And he brought it to Pharaoh's place. You understand what was going on? People were so poor and so hungry. And Joseph, for the 7 good years, he collected all of the grain that he could collect. In the king's palace and king's warehouses, they were full of food. And now these poor people, they're coming to Joseph and they're saying, we don't have anything to eat in our fields. Can you help us out? And what does Joseph say? Yeah, I'll help you out, but pay. You have to pay for it. So he collected all of the money that the people in Egypt had, and he sold them the grain. He didn't give it to them. When the money of the people of Egypt and Canaan was gone, all Egypt came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? Our money is all gone. Now listen to this story. This is a lesson that can be learned. And Joseph says to them, then bring your livestock, said Joseph. I will sell you food in exchange for your livestock since your money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses, their sheep and goats, their cattle and donkeys. And he brought them through that year with food in exchange for all their livestock. So first, the government took all of their money. Then the government took all of their horses and cows and animals. What happens next? When that year was over, they came to him the following year and said, "We cannot hide from our Lord the fact that since our money is gone and our livestock belongs to you, there is nothing left for our Lord except our bodies and our land. Why should we perish before your eyes, we and our land as well? Buy us and our land in exchange for food, and we with our land will be in bondage to Pharaoh. Give us seed so that we may live and not die, and that the land may not become desolate." So Joseph bought all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh. The Egyptians, one and all, sold their fields because the famine was too severe for them. Isn't this an amazing story? The land became Pharaoh's. And Joseph, listen to this sentence, and Joseph reduced the people to servitude from one end of Egypt to the other. Everybody, in a period of 7 years, every single person in that country became a slave to the government. Every single person. They lost their money, they lost their livestock, they lost their land, and finally they were so hungry that they sold themselves into the slavery so that they could live. However, he did not buy the land of the priests because they received a regular allotment from Pharaoh and had food enough from the allotment Pharaoh gave them. That is why they did not sell their land. Joseph said to the people, "Now that I have bought you and your land today for Pharaoh, here is seed for you so you can plant the ground. But when the crop comes in, give a fifth of it to Pharaoh. The other 4/5 you may keep as a seed for the fields and as food for yourselves and your household and your children. You have saved our lives," they said. "May we find favor in the eyes of our Lord. We will be in bondage to Pharaoh." So Joseph established it as a law concerning land in Egypt, still in force today, that the fifth of the produce belongs to Pharaoh. Fifth is what? Somebody who is good with math. How much is 1/5? Okay? It was only the land of the priests that did not become Pharaoh's. So, in a short period of 7 years, they lost their money, they lost their animals, they lost their land, they lost their freedom, and they signed on the dotted line that for the rest of their life, they would be paying 20% back to the government. That's what happened. You know what's a shame? Here in America, what's a real shame is that right now, most Americans voluntarily put themselves into the bondage. Every single one of us who owns a credit card, who has a car loan, who has a government education loan, who has a mortgage, every single one of us who is in that position has put themselves voluntarily into the bondage. And you work, and you get your paycheck on Friday, and you can't spend it because it's already designated where it needs to go. And you work your whole life, and you're supporting the banks, and you're supporting the government, and you're paying everybody but yourself. And we call ourselves free. One world government in America the idea of America do not mesh. They don't come together. Because America was made for free people. And one world government wants to subjugate everybody. And if it can subjugate Americans, the rest of the world is going to fall apart like it was nothing. Because the rest of the world, as prosperous as some of these countries are, they're already under the control of their governments, of their churches. This is the last country that still has the freedom to choose, but not for long the way things are going. Easiest way to change America is to ruin it financially. If citizens depend on the government for everything, they are in effect enslaved. Steps that were taken in the past 30 years to subdue and to change America from the land of the free to the land of the slave. Number one, ruin the American worker. A big thing that happened was the big attack on the unions. Unions became a dirty word in America. The same unions that were fighting for people's rights and for a better wage, they became a dirty word. Unionized workers went from 30% in the 1970s to 9% today. R stands for Republicans. They are the ones who had a huge hand in attacking the unions. Why? Because they are the ones that are protecting the interest of the big business. So that was something that started happening 30 years ago. Let's just destroy the unions as much as we can. Another one was open the borders. Who opened the borders of this country? You know, today everybody's blaming the Mexicans. Oh, they're coming in here and taking our jobs. Let me ask you this. Who opened the borders? Ronald Reagan was president for 8 years. George Bush Sr. was president for another 4 years. That's 12. They had Congress. They had Senate. Why didn't they close the borders during those 12 years? Who opened the borders? Big business opened the borders. Big business. When you have one chicken company employing 20,000 illegals and paying them a minimum wage, then you know who opened the borders. Big business opened the borders. And both Republicans and Democrats, even though they keep claiming how there is such a huge difference between the two of them, they both participated in this. And look the other way. Oh, we're not going to do anything about the border because my buddy owns a big construction company and 10,000 of his employees are illegals, and that's why Americans can buy cheap homes. So we're not going to do anything about it. So both parties participated in this. And look the other way. You open the borders, you lower the wages, the American worker suffers. Ship jobs out of the country. That was another one. That was a big one. Who participated in that? Republicans, Democrats, or both? Both. They shipped all of the jobs to Asia. Bill Clinton was the one, a Democrat president, who with the help of the Republican Party signed NAFTA. And you remember Ross Perot. How many of you remember Ross Perot? And Ross Perot, do you remember what he used to say? He used to say, there's going to be a giant sucking sound, and it's going to suck all of the jobs down south. Was that a good impression? Not really. But he used to say that. And you know, Bill Clinton, he signed it. He was a Democrat, and he signed NAFTA, basically meaning that everybody can import into America whatever they want to without any tariffs, you know. So if I'm owning a factory here in America, and if I'm making glass windows, and I can go to Mexico now and make them at 1/4 of a price, what am I going to do? You tell me. They made it, our government made it so easy for these big companies to go to Mexico. And you know what happened? They went to Mexico, and all of a sudden on the other side of the border, they started building all of these factories, you know, and that lasted what, 2 or 3 years? Now you go down to Mexico and into those border towns, and all of those factories are shut down. You know why? Because they found out that they could make more profit by moving the factories all the way to Asia, whether it was China or India or somewhere else. So again, the American working class is slowly being destroyed and choked. And our government is implicitly involved in that destruction. Another thing that happened was make it hard to operate business in this country. And I think Democrats have a lot more to do with that than Republicans. Regulations for everything. I challenge anybody out there, if you're an entrepreneur, and you decide that you're going to make this a factory in Denver that's going to build these microphone stands. You decide this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a factory in Denver, and I'm going to build these microphone stands. Then I challenge you. You go to the state government and the city government and the county government and get all the permits that you need to get, and then go talk to OSHA, and then go talk to Environmental Protection Agency, and then go talk to all of the different government agencies. It'll be 5 years before you can even break the ground. So our government is making it easy for people to open factories overseas and hard for us to operate factories inside of the country. And the American worker is losing. Losing the power to be independent and free. Reduce home ownership. That's another thing that happened in this country. How many people bought houses during the boom, and then how many people are losing homes right now? And having to live, I'm talking to people who at the age of 45 are moving into their mother's basement because they lost their house. And now we are hearing that there is going to be more foreclosures in 2011 than at any time before. So reduce the home ownership. Make the whole country dependent on a higher authority. And the last one is socialize everything so that the average citizen cannot survive without the government handout. Socialize everything. Socialize Medicaid, give people checks. You know, I have a friend who has been unemployed for 2 years, and he is getting every single week a check from the government. Who is paying for that? Thank you. You know who is paying for that? You know what we are doing? We are simply printing more money. Just printing more money. So this is what's going on in America. So how is it going so far in America? Have we been successful? These are the pictures of the factories now that you're going to see in Asia, in China, in Thailand, in Hong Kong, all over the place. And you can see how is it going. Do you realize that the American companies, American businesses have created 1.5 million jobs in 2010? You know where they created them? Not in the United States. American companies have created 1.5 million jobs outside of the United States in 2010. And they're getting all the breaks. A company like Coca-Cola, American company, how many say Coca-Cola is an American company? I know you're not jumping to that because you know what's coming. 11% of their employees are Americans. So is that an American company or is that an international company? But this is what's going on. We are creating all of these jobs outside of the United States, and the American worker has no work. People are looking for jobs for 2 years, for 3 years. They can't find jobs. What's happening to American factories? What's happening to the places in this country that used to bustle and that used to be full of workers? And these are some of those pictures too. See the difference? That's what's going on in this country right now. The American working class person is becoming so totally dependent on the government. We are losing. our freedom to put food on the table for the family. When you lose your freedom like the Egyptians did during the time of Joseph, when you lose your freedom to put food on the table for your family, then you are also going to lose your religious freedom. You're going to lose your freedom of speech. You're going to lose your freedom to privacy. Why? Because you are enslaved to the one who sends you the check every Friday or every first of the month. And this is the direction that we are going in. I threw in a few more pictures of the bustle and hustle of the Asian malls and shopping centers over there, and I just wanted to share that with you. And then after that, we are going to show you a few pictures of the American malls and what's going on here right now. How many of you ever go to this little mall on 92nd and Sheridan? Anybody? I mean, is it still open? Really? I'm surprised that it is still open. I really am surprised that it is still open. Yeah, empty, boarded, closed down. That's what's going on. How many people here have been negatively and adversely affected by economy in the last 5 years? I'm on my job now for 20 years for this conference. And honestly, I don't think that, I'm not complaining. Please don't anybody send an email to the conference. I don't think that we have gotten a raise in years. And we used to get a living wage increase of living, whatever, every once in a while. Nothing for years. And the same thing is happening all over the place. We have lost our ability to provide. We have lost our ability to be free. And when you lose the economic ability, you lose everything else. And this is the direction where this is going. Only 47% of working-age Americans have a full-time job at this point. Did you know that? The jobs have been shipped out to another country or other countries outside of the United States. 1 out of every 6 elderly Americans now lives below the federal poverty line. 1 out of 6. In America today, 8.9 million people are working part-time jobs because of economic reasons. You go to McDonald's, and who's working in the McDonald's? Senior citizens and elderly people. Why? Because they have to. Not because they like dealing with nasty customers and people who are in a hurry and people who yell at them. No, because they have to. Otherwise, they can't pay for their mortgage. The United States now has 10% fewer middle-class jobs than it did just 10 years ago. Back in 1970, 25% of all jobs in the United States were manufacturing jobs. Today, only 9% of the jobs in America are manufacturing jobs. I could go down the list. The number of Americans filing for bankruptcy rose another 9% in 2010. Median wage is declining. The food prices are going up. All of these things are happening. Why? Because somebody, I believe, wants to destroy the American idea. And one of these days, somebody's going to come in and they are going to say, we have a way out. And the way out is we need to go back to religion. And we need to pray more. And we need to be in church every Sunday morning. Everybody does. And we need to be more faithful to God. And we need to make alliances with other countries and other peoples. And we need to maybe go on a one same world money for everybody. And we just need to work with all of the other countries so that we can pull ourselves out of this problem. And they're not going to say one world government, but this is the language that they will use. We need to be unified. Together we stand, and if we are not united, we are all going to fall apart and be destroyed. What are you going to do when that day comes? And the Bible says that it is going to come. Then I saw another beast come out of the earth. He had 2 horns like those of a lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and its people to worship the first, required to worship the first beast. He required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on the right hand or on the forehead. And no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. One world government. You know what else it says here in the Bible? In Revelation chapter 13. I want to read in closing one more text. Then a third angel followed them, shouting, "Anyone who worships the beast and his statue, or who accepts his mark on the forehead or on the hand, must drink the wine of God's anger. It has been poured full strength into God's cup of wrath, and they will be tormented with fire and burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. The smoke of their torment will rise forever and ever, and they will have no relief day or night, for they have worshipped the beast and his statue and have accepted the mark of his name." And then listen to this. This means that God's holy people must endure persecution patiently, obeying his commandments and maintaining their faith in Jesus. Will you be able to obey God's commandments when this time comes? Will you be able to do that? Or will you say to me, maybe I'll say it to you, I can't do this because government is telling me that I have to do it this way. And if I don't do it, I'm not going to get my food stamps. And I can't let my family go hungry. You're going to be so dependent on somebody else that it is going to affect your decisions? And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this down. Blessed are those who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, they are blessed indeed, for they will rest from their hard work, for their good deeds will follow them." The Bible says that it's going to be so hard. Those who die before that time are the ones that are blessed, because they're not going to have to endure what's coming on this earth. You and I are not going to be able to avoid any of this. You're not going to be able to run away somewhere and hide and say, "Oh, I'm just going to hide and be protected and I'm going to worship the Lord." No, you're not going to be able to do that. You are going to have to stand up and be counted. You will have to make a decision. Do I lose my house, my animals, my food, my freedom? Do I lose everything because I want to worship God the way I was taught to worship Him? Do I surrender? Do I just protect my existence right now? Or do I lose everything for the sake of the Lord? What are you going to do? It's hard to make that assessment right now, isn't it? It's very hard. And I'll tell you, the only thing that can help us make the proper decision now and then is our ability to have the intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ gives you something that no book learning can ever give you, that no degrees in theology can ever give you, that no Bible lessons can ever give you. Jesus Christ gives you the guidance through the power of His Holy Spirit. And the only way you can access that guidance is if you're in tune with it. If you don't know, if now, when the time is good, relatively good if you have not learned how to listen to God? When are you going to learn? If you have not learned to have an intimate relationship with Jesus every day, when are you going to do it? When the trouble comes, it's going to be too late. When the trouble comes, you may find yourself totally unprepared. And you may end up making a bad decision that's going to cost you your eternal life. So whatever else you do in your life, make sure that you get to know Jesus intimately today. God bless you as you contemplate these words. Amen.